Looking for light in a sea of shadows. A bedtime story for grown-ups. Hello, please be welcome, friend. This time, you and I are going to immerse ourselves in a fascinating story that will help you make your imagination run wild. In this way, your body and mind will be so relaxed that it will be easier for you to fall into a pleasant and deep sleep finally. I invite you to find a quiet place where you can forget about the world around you and lie down on a bed or a sofa in the position in which you feel most comfortable. Once you've done it, close your eyes and let yourself be carried away by the story you are about to hear. Inhale deeply and then exhale slowly. The time has come to begin. Once upon a time, a young knight named Loreno was so good with a sword, so skilled with a horse, and so accurate with a bow that no person in the world wanted to meet him in battle. Loreno was lean and lazy looking, but his strength was so great that he once stopped a large elephant by pulling it by the tail. Although he did not always wish to be a knight, his childhood was so complicated that he did not hesitate to take up arms to make a name for himself, fighting on behalf of his king, the great Elimna the Fat, when the opportunity to do so arose. Loreno's first feat was when he alone faced 20 men in a battle that seemed lost. On this occasion, Loreno's steel sliced through the air and ripped through flesh with such grace that those who seemed to be at a disadvantage were his opponents. Tell in your homes what happened today and say that you were able to return only because Loreno the Knight allowed it. I do not want to see you in this kingdom again. Never return, he said, and the enemies fled, bloodied and sick with fear. From that day on, King Elimna the Fat looked at him, moved by the emotion of having such an imposing warrior, and would not remove it until the day of his death. Loreno had grown up in the darkest of streets of Halud's kingdom. He did not know his mother. His father disappeared on a ship to the Far East, and from a young age he saw firsthand the injustices and chaos that abounded under the king's decadent reign. For this reason, unlike the other knights, Loreno only wanted to fight until he did not have to fight again. Marry a woman who would not abandon him, and live in a place where he would not have to witness evil, war, or poverty. Loreno was searching for light amid a sea of shadows. He did not sympathize with his king because he ate so much that left his subjects unreserved for the winter. Still, it was not his place to comment on politics. All he had to do was to go to war when called upon, fight to the death for Halud's kingdom, and continue to make a name for himself as a knight. He wished they were so afraid of seeing him that they avoided facing him. That was how he wanted never to have to kill anyone again. And so he continued with his life. Loreno's second incredible feat was much more complicated than the last. A castle that King Elimner had built for one of his lovers was under siege. Catapults dropped rocks at cobbled walls. Archers shot fiery arrows at windows, and infantry looted and stole everything in their reach. The king did not love his lover too much, so he only sent Loreno and 3 more knights. That night, the 3 knights were left over. Loreno grabbed 7 men by the neck and threw them into a river full of alligators. He disarmed a colossal warrior carrying a great sword, and after taking his life, covered himself with the rain of arrows that the enemies had thrown. That night, Loreno defeated 112 soldiers, took out 600 archers, and sent more than 2,500 people who thought they had met the devil himself head on. His 3 companions knelt before him and applauded him amid the massacre, and even the king's mistress came down from the high tower of the castle to jump on top of him, moved by his heroism. No one expected that castle to be saved, least of all King Elimner the Fat. Very soon, the monarch decided that he would use Loreno to conquer other kingdoms. Still, when the news reached the knight, he replied, "Why do you want to conquer other kingdoms? Let him first learn to rule this one." And everyone in Halud agreed, even the most loyal gentleman. That was the first conflict that both had, but the king let it pass. I would find a way to make him pay for his disobedience. One day, Loreno met a dark-haired, angel-gazed maiden who planted flowers in the middle of a dark street in Halud. It was love at first sight. When the 2 of them collided, Loreno felt that there was no longer any need to continue looking for lights in seas of shadows, and that he was ready to marry at that very moment. The 2 of them moved to a small house in the middle of the city, and they loved each other so much that she even thought about hanging up the sword. However, King Elimner the Fat was not going to let him. When he learned that his disobedient knight was in love, he smirked and said to his advisors, "Let us declare a war to the death against the kingdom of Stral, it will be Loreno who will be right at the head of the attack. Loreno was dragged from the peaceful home he had formed to return to battle, unaware of what his dastardly king was planning. The war, which promised to last less than a month, lasted for a whole year. Loreno was sent to face armies hundreds of thousands more than his own, and in each fight he was victorious. When everything seemed dark, the knights of Halud looked at Loreno, and their hearts were filled with hope. For him, they fought with the strength of 10 men. After an absurd war in which all he won was wasting time, Loreno returned home, and what he saw broke his heart. He did not find the beloved with whom he had fallen in love, and he soon learned why. The king had ordered that they take her with him to make her his new lover. Loreno took up his weapons and walked up to the castle. Elimna the Fat greeted him with a smile, saying, "Welcome home, my champion. You already know my new wife, don't you? As a reward for your fight, I can lend her to you for a while." Loreno started crying. He hadn't done it since his childhood. "Elimna, give me a reason not to kill you right now," he told him. And the 300 knights in that room drew their weapons, shaking with fear, not wanting to have to face him. The king was about to offend him, but it was his former wife who spoke. "Loreno, I no longer love you. I love him. You are no longer essential to me." Loreno fell to his knees, soul shattered. The king ordered that he be imprisoned, but the knights did not dare to shackle him. Loreno himself walked limply to the cell, and there he released all his rage against the walls. Everyone in the Halud's kingdom heard his cries of sadness that night, and there was no one who was not moved. As Loreno tried to sleep to forget his grief at midnight, a gentleman approached him and handed him a letter. It smelled of flowers, smelled like his old wife. He took it in his hands, and when he read it, he felt his heart beat again, that his soul was filled with strength again, and now he was capable of doing anything. She still loved him as much as the first day, but something forced her to stay with the king. While Loreno was at war, the woman's womb began to grow until she finally gave birth to the most beautiful child of all. King Elimna had the child hidden and threatened to kill him if she left him. Loreno did his third and most outstanding feat at that time. With both hands, he grasped the bars of his cell and dislodged them from the wall. Armed only with an icy gaze that instilled death terror, Loreno walked through the dark corridors of the castle, saluting his former knights who dared not even raise their swords, and made his way up to the royal chambers. There he found the king asleep, occupying 3/4 of his bed with his body, and his wife, who was waiting for him with a dagger in hand. "Do you want me to kill him?" she asked him, and he shook his head. "No, what I will do with him will be much worse than death." Loreno woke the monarch with a loud blow to the pit of the stomach, drowned him in a chamber pot until he revealed where the knight's son and the maiden were, and then carried him out of the castle by the neck. "Today I am going to show you all the wonders of your kingdom, Elimna," Loreno told him as he walked the king through the dark streets of Halud. The king looked with terrified eyes at the dirt, poverty, and hunger, and all the inhabitants of the city looked at him as he were a circus attraction. They threw tomatoes at him, made fun of him, and when Loreno dropped him in front of everyone, they stripped him of his gold rings, his silver necklaces, his shiny trinkets, and even his robe. The king was left naked amid the filth. "Kill me, please," said the king to the knight, but Loreno was shaking his head, smiling. "No, you are not going to die today," he replied. The knight led the naked king to the castle, and everyone present was applauding. "Find me the king's son, find the prince," Loreno said. The boy woke up, looking at his naked father in the middle of the room. Loreno yelled, "Prince Eric, I am not killing this man today, because soon you will be my king, and I do not wish that there is hatred in your heart. Say goodbye to your father, because today we're going to send him so far from here that you will not be able to see him again." The king, crying, opened his arms for his son to embrace him, but he did not. Prince Eric said, "Take him away now. It took a long time to get this man off the throne. He doesn't even remember my mother's name, so I don't want to see him again." Loreno the knight put the king on a horse, still naked, and said, "Elimna the fat, you tried to take everything from the person who won the most battles on your behalf, and this is what you get. Never forget that it was I who allowed you to stay alive. Never forget that you cannot set foot in Halud's kingdom again." And so it happened. Elimna was sent so far away that no one ever knew how he died. Prince Eric became an intelligent and caring king who did not call for absurd wars again, and caused his kingdom to shine for the first time in many decades. Loreno, his beautiful wife, and their son stayed in the castle. He hung up his sword, burned his armor, and got bored of riding. Loreno felt lucky because as he searched for a light in a sea of shadows, he discovered that it could be the beacon that would end the darkness in his kingdom. He had many grandchildren because his son was as brave and strong as he was, and he died happily, accompanied by his beautiful and great family.